Welcome back to Two Kids and a Doctorate. This is your host, Dr. Soyla Quesada. I am delighted to be back on episode number 11. Yes, folks, it has been since August since I have put out an episode, and due to time, but also fear, and vulnerability. So the last episode was when I knew that I was ready to separate, to kind of set up, a process to divorce, a pathway to divorce. And that left me open. That left me very vulnerable. And I had put it out there into a podcast, mind you. Even as I was going through the process, it was a process that I did in silence. I didn't communicate it to many people. As a matter of fact, I was separated, and my mom didn't even know that I was separated. So just to give you a glimpse of how deeply hidden that conversation has been for me, because it happened, and yes, I account it as a failure, and I did that because I grew up in a single family home. I grew up understanding and knowing that my life would have been a lot easier if I had a dad that would have contributed either to my life financially or to my life in love and time. And I had none of those. And so I knew when, getting older, that if I was going to enter a serious relationship and one that would include children, that I was going to maintain a marriage, that I was going to stay in it, because that's all I wanted, really. Like I never dreamt of a white picket fence. I definitely dreamt of a composition of a family of two parents, and if there were children. And so in my case, I got to the marriage part, and it was not easy. It was not easy. And so this episode is to talk about, rather than on the surface level of when I was ready, when I knew I was ready, and rather tell you some of the things I learned through the process. A lot of the things I learned about myself through the process. It has been a process that I'm still in right now, because I am still processing a lot of it. I am still, there are days where I'm like, what did you learn about yourself? And I reflect on who I was then, who I am now. And I reflect on the things that I know I would not do, or I would do better if I decided to, embark again in a structured partnership like that one. And when I was getting ready to record this episode, I started taking notes of what will you talk about in this episode? How far will you go? And I will tell you that I stopped writing the notes, and I came on the mic and decided I will say what comes to mind, and we will get through this. So let me begin by saying that this episode is about what I learned through the process, and what I know I brought into the marriage, and how that had an effect on how it ended, and how I got to, the place of like, this ain't for me. This just ain't it. So I do want to tell the folks, if you're happily married, please understand that there is a huge asterisk in bold letters underlined to say to you that I love love, I support love, and I support happy marriages. I don't support fake marriages. And when I say fake marriages, the ones where like, I'm so happy, I love him, but deep down inside the stuff that's going on at home that you're not sharing, but you're putting up a front like, everything's great, I love him, he loves me, and we are just so complete with each other, when in reality you're not. And so I want to say that those are the ones I love. I do love the ones that, it is a partnership. It is genuine love. It is genuine support. It is genuine give and take. Okay, then let's get started. So let me just tell you, I never had a role model, marriage to look up to. I did have one between my aunt and my uncle growing up, and then way before, I believe I was in college, one day themselves separated and divorced. And so I feel like that was my little bit of glimpse of hope into what a family looks like, and they had a beautiful family, and things happened, and that ended. I myself in my home did not grow up seeing what what it meant, what it looks like, what it took. Okay, can we just say that? What it takes to be in a marriage, or any partnership. It doesn't have to be like you have to be legally married. You could just be in a partnership for a long time. So I just want to also differentiate the two. Like, they're the same thing. It does not matter. Marriage laws are a scam, and that's a whole nother episode. Okay. Marriage laws and how some states still have it so that the man owns the woman in a lot of ways, or yeah, let's just not get into that. Okay, let's get back to the topic at hand. I did not have a role model of a couple, a marriage. I come from generations of single mothers. My great grandmother was a single mom. My grandmother was a single mom to 5 children. My mom was a single mom as well. So all I saw in my family was strong, independent, powerful women who sought out to do it on their own, who, either by luck, by not having really great partners, or because they themselves also had a lot of stuff to work through that they had not been aware of. And that's what I wanted to change in my generation. I wanted the family. I wanted the kids. I wanted the, wow, look at us, we're doing things together, we're successful together, etc. The thing is, I didn't know how to go about it. I didn't. I knew that was a goal of mine, but I didn't know what it took. And I wasn't self-aware then. I wasn't learning about myself. I wasn't in tune with who I was. I wasn't, my perspective wasn't that I need to do this in order for this to work. It was more like, no, you need to come to this marriage ready because I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not changing. I am who I am, etc., etc. That mindset. And just to be clear, I'm not here to tell his side of the story because I know there was a lot that it was partly his, of course. It was a relationship of two people. And so this episode is more about what I learned about myself through it, and how I'm also going to be taking some of what I've learned forward with me. Number one myth I had was, you just get married and figure it out. Like, everything's fine. No, let's not. Don't do it. If you're listening to this and you're not married yet, don't expect to make it work in marriage. Like, make sure things are ironed out, all the wrinkles are out, that you understand each other, that you know one another, that you know what makes each other tick, that you understand the person and you understand who you are. Let's just take that very seriously. Understanding who you are, and then understanding the person, and understanding where are the ways in which that you'll be flexible within that relationship. I didn't have the time. I didn't feel like I had the time. I had no patience. Patience is a virtue. And that is probably the number one advice I give people who are not married yet and want to be in a marriage. Patience. Patience is a gift. And if you don't have that as a skill, practice it, because there needs to be a lot of patience. And I'm not patient. I'm a fast action taker. I know I want this, I'm going to go for it and do it. But you have to be patient. You have to listen. You have to be a good listener. I wasn't so much. I was always stuck on like, no, I'm right. like what do you mean we have to have a discussion about this? Like, we're done, because that's what it is. This is how it is. So understanding now that in a relationship, you do have to communicate, listen, and come to the middle with things. And that was something that I was not really good at. I was not. It was more like, we can try, but I can tell you now that's not going to work. So I would always come into it that way. And with that, it's the communication skills. I also was a person who, if I'm upset, I'm mad. If I'm upset, I'm mad. We're not talking. I'm not going to spend time with you screaming, arguing, because that's just a waste of my time. And so I would just be silent. And I didn't have the skill of, all right, how do you take your anger? It could be like about the most smallest things. And how do you take it and make sense of it and then communicate it to people without it becoming this huge thing? And like I said, I'm not speaking from the other person's experience. I'm speaking with mine. And when I speak of communication, I do have to say that it takes two to communicate. But I do have to say that for my part, it was that. It was more of the, all right, girl, like, listen and make sure you're able to be, come to the middle on things and not always be so confrontational. I also had a long list of expectations of how someone else needed to make me feel, about how someone else what someone else had to do for me. And I realized that that doesn't need to be that way. You need to come complete to a relationship, to a partnership, in order for you to flourish together, and not so much expect the other person to fill in the gaps for you. And that is an advice I will give you, whether you are right now married or not, or in a long-term relationship, or if you are thinking about entering a long-term, solidifying the current relationship you have, or going into a partnership that is stamped by the law. And so you do have to make sure that you are not expecting anything from anyone, that you yourself are a whole person, and that, because you know what, at the end of the day, I found out that a lot of the things I was upset about was because I had expected this person to do the things that I needed to do for myself. And that was a huge learning moment for me. And I should have started with this, but I have never been good about choosing the partners that would complement me, right? That would complement the partnership. I should have actually put this at the very beginning of this episode, and that is that I did not, although I grew up in a single family home. Not only was there no father in the home because my dad wasn't there, but I didn't have a roadmap of what a healthy relationship was, period. Mother to mother, grandma to mother, like I had no idea of what a healthy relationship was because there was a lot of chaos in the family. This is not unique to my family. All of our families have stuff, right? I did not have a role model of a relationship to know what a healthy relationship was based on. And so when I chose people, I always chose people on my own experience as a child growing up. And the ways I did that was, yes, I'm a firm believer and supporter of therapy. And I learned this through therapy, that you always look for people to marry or be in long-term relationships that mirror your experience, because that's all you know. You know that's what makes you comfortable, even if it's chaotic and bananas and it drives you crazy. That's what you look for, because that's what you're used to. That's comfort for you, although it's not comfortable because it's not fun and you're at the edge of your seat every time, all the time. But you choose people to be part of your life because of what you've experienced through your childhood into adulthood, because that's what you know, and that's what feels good because that's what you've lived through. Another thing is that because my dad left my mom was 16, my dad was 54 when they got together. That's a lot of years of a difference. And my dad left her pregnant. Okay, so I've had this fear of abandonment my whole life since I was in my mom's belly. I always had this fear of, well, my partner will leave me just like my dad will. So why don't I just, choose the person that I know will do that? Or you start to imagine it too. It might be that the person will not leave you and you still live through it, or that's all you know, the abandonment feeling. And before that person abandons you, you abandon them, correct? And because you're like, you're not going to do what they did to me, or you choose people that will leave you because that's what you're used to. So there's those two scenarios in that case, because that's what you're used to. You thrive and you attract and are attracted to the things that you know. Seeing single mothers in my family, I knew that it was possible to do it on my own. And that was the deciding factor. Everybody in my family has done it. What makes you think that I can't do it? And let me just tell you, everyone that's listening, whether you are in, a family of two parents, or you are a single parent yourself, or you're thinking about having children in whatever composition of your family that it is that being a single parent is not easy. Us single mothers probably make it look easy only because we get it done, because we have no other choice. We have no choice of asking a partner or asking an ex-partner that is still involved in the child's life to do a thing, to take the child away for a weekend, to drop off and pick up at school, to be in touch with your kids when they're sick, to do this and the other thing. It is not easy to do it alone. It is not easy. So don't be fooled by what we are perceived to be. It is not an easy thing to do, okay? I say that, but I also say don't stay in a marriage for kids. Why? Because if you are unhappy in a marriage, your kids will know that. And you don't want them to see that either. You don't want them to see that you stick it out and you are unhappy for kids. So sacrificing your happiness for them to be looking at you two, like fighting all the time, arguing. I don't know about y'all, but I just could not have pictured myself doing that. I could not, because I just could not stand being in that partnership, in that relationship, that I could not even see myself faking it, or faking the funk, or staying in the same household, or staying under the same roof in two different bedrooms. Like I just could not see it. So don't also put yourself in that place where you are going to do that for your children, because at the end of the day, you have to do what's best for you and your children. And having them watch you fighting and disagreeing and not liking one another and this and that, that also affects who they are and how they grow up. That was a tad bit of advice that came up as I was thinking about my role. And of course, when I decided that I just was not going to do the thing anymore, I didn't expect to be a single parent. So let me just make that very clear. I did not expect it. I expected a relationship, a parenting relationship with this other person that did not unfold in the ways that I had hoped it did. And so I just wanted to kind of like just give you a heads up that you also are kind of gambling with it, right? So when you decide to embark on being, a separate parent, there are things you're just don't know until that you come to that road. So I wanted to be single myself, but not be in a single parenting relationship, if that makes sense. Last thing before we wrap up, understand your brain, understand yourself, understand what triggers you, understand, are you an impulsive person? Does your brain get overstimulated? Which was my case. I could not stand arguing. I could not even stand the sound of another voice in my ear. Like it was just, oh, please don't. So understand yourself to the most minimalists of ways. Like understand yourself so deeply that you know why things happen. Understand yourself so much before you go into it, and also make sure that you understand yourself while you're in it, and understand yourself even more, because you will have that space to do that afterwards. And so what I hope for you is that if you're listening to this and you are yourself thinking about entering a long-term relationship or a marriage, please understand that it has a lot to do with both of you, but the only thing you can do is have control over yourself. Starts with the self. And that is it for this episode. If this inspired you or motivated you or made you think in any way, please share with your family, friends, colleagues, peers. This is 2 Kids, 1 Doctorate, and I am your host, Dr. Zoila Quesada, and I will be back very soon with the next episode. Take care.